This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me today are the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO, Zach Vassar. We also have the TSO's marketing director, Felicia Canny, and two very special guests that I want to introduce one at a time. First of all, we have Tim Lake. And Tim, tell me what you are again. You're the orchestra manager?
I'm the production manager for the orchestra.
The production manager.
The technical details.
Now, you're talking much more meekly than you were before, because you told me you were in charge of the whole thing.
Felicia told me that I was too loud, and then, the whole thing went downhill from there. Sorry about that, yeah.
And then we have Joan Weiler, right?
Yes.
And Joan, you and I have not met before.
Right.
So when we do our magic trick, they'll know that it hasn't been pre-planned, right?
Okay.
Now, you are in charge of bassoons, is that right?
Well, I would like to think I'm in charge of bassoons, but no.
Bassoon reeds.
Yeah. I am a bassoonist with the Toledo Symphony and
Yeah.
the orchestra.
Now, you and I are kindred souls because I was a bassoonist for a long time. So I sort of know my way around a bassoon. Not quite as well as you do, I'm
nightmare
sure.
the other night
but
about bassoons.
This is my recurring nightmare.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sitting with two bassoonists.
Really?
Oh,
I was
God.
the
And there
featured
are no
soloist,
windows.
and I had no idea how to play it. I was like, whisper key, no.
So, anyway, let's get on topic, shall we? Because we do have a topic for today, and that is the upcoming concert of the Indigo Girls, which is happening on Friday, June 1st. That's coming up in just a couple of days, my friends. It's 8 o'clock p.m. at the Stranahan Theater. They're going to be performing some of their greatest hits. But so this is a really wonderful event, and it's sort of where, folk music meets classical music, and they both complement each other into an experience that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. Now, I said before we got on the podcast that, a lot of Indigo Girls fans are going to want to go to this concert, but maybe people who don't know that much about Indigo Girls, or maybe have just heard their songs here and there, would be interested in coming to see the concert as well. So I definitely fall in that latter category because I didn't know anything about them outside of maybe a couple of songs before I came in here. But Joan, in addition to being in charge of bassoons, you also know a lot about Indigo Girls, right?
Well, I mean, I know, a little bit. I just know.
Joan, you're selling yourself short here.
I'm the
I
world's
drove in behind
biggest Indigo
you,
Girls
and
fan.
you were jamming in your car, and I could tell by the way you were moving your head what album you were listening to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really? Wow. That's quite a talent.
Zach knows things he shouldn't know, quite frankly. It's a little scary.
That's sort of like a weird form of phrenology. You know what I'm talking about? Where you examine the bumps on somebody's head. So you just look at the way they're nodding their head, and
This is closer to fine. Yes.
You can tell. But it only works for the Indigo Girls, or if they're bobbing their head to Mahler, you could figure out which symphony it is.
It's very confusing with Mahler. I can do it with Benny Goodman, maybe Artie Shaw, but that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure it's a useful talent at times.
It's not.
So, Joan, I'm sorry, Joan, we left you in the lurch there.
Oh, hey, Joan.
You were telling us
Hey.
about your expertise with
Happens all the
Indigo
time.
Girls.
Well, I mean, I actually, discovered them a little later than when they first started, but I think I discovered them shortly after their album "Shaming of the Sun" was released, so maybe around 1998, something like that.
See, already you know infinitely more than I do.
And I also bought at the same time Swamp Ophelia, both of the CDs at the time, and I just I grew up on not classical music, so it's a little unusual that I'm a classical musician, but I grew up on rock and roll, folk music. So,
because there's a lot of bassoon in that as well.
Yes.
You were rocking out on that bassoon.
Well, there was the one song I'm trying to think. I can't think of it right now, but they definitely had bassoon in it.
The
Is it
one
an
rock and roll
Indigo
song
Girls?
that
Yes.
has bassoon
Yes.
in it?
Yeah.
Really?
By the Indigo Girls?
No, not Indigo Girls. It was
Rite of Spring, perhaps?
No. That is a rock song, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is. It is the classical rock song. Okay. But I just love their sound, their voices. I play guitar and sing myself, so to see two women up there, and they were and are around my age, so it was highly intriguing for me, and their vocals are just amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And they both play guitar, and they have this sort of acoustic thing going on but it sounds so much larger than what you see. They get a big full sound out of those guitars.
Right. Well, I mean, they very well may have other instruments backing them up. I'm not positive.
Kazoo,
of that,
perhaps?
But yeah.
They do not.
shaking
They're
my
not coming
head.
in with a band, if that's what you mean, a band behind them.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's not
like today.
happening.
Okay.
Yes,
I mean,
but Tim, do they have any kazoos?
Speaking of kazoos,
they're-
I have an addition to my soundboard. See if you can tell me what this is.
That's
I don't.
That's not nice.
But what is that?
Wait, let's hear
no,
it
no,
again.
no, no, no. I don't
What
know
am I
how
listening
to.
to?
I am speechless.
It is, Tim, I think the answer is it's a mallard duck swimming in Olander Park.
Or sinking. This was one of our earlier episodes where we had to play kazoo. We had to play Schubert songs on kazoo, and I don't mean to make fun of you, Felicia, at all, but it was so
Yeah, right.
it was so funny.
That was meant as a compliment, right?
Yeah. It was just adorable the fact to see you try to play the kazoo and you couldn't get it to work. But what's funny is like
It's
when
because I had to undo
It could have been
years
you.
of trying to play the oboe.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you have to unlearn everything for the
I know,
kazoo. So,
exactly.
The
Maybe
double reed thing.
reeds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. It could have been you on kazoo or me on a microphone during allergy season. It could have been either one.
So I guess the question is, Joan, as a reed instrumentalist,
yes.
can you play a kazoo?
I don't know. Do we have a kazoo
Oh, if
around?
only we had one.
Well,
Brad.
you usually, I almost called you ahead of time, Zach, and said bring the kazoos, but
Okay.
I wasn't quite sure how that was going to go.
You should have
over when
signed the bat symbol up in the sky. That's when
Yeah.
I know to bring the
a
kazoos.
kazoo, a big
Yeah.
kazoo.
Yeah. So Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
Indigo Girls, indeed. Okay, back to Indigo Girls. So I decided I had to do a little prep for this session because I didn't know anything about Indigo Girls, really. So I went online and I took an "Are you an Indigo Girls fan?" quiz. And I basically just, used
They got
educated
anything online these
guesses.
days.
Educated guesses, and mostly just guessing. And I failed the quiz. They
I thought
said
you scored 100 or
no,
something.
no. I got less than 50%, I think, which they considered a fail. But I learned a lot in doing that, as we often do. There are no mistakes, just opportunities for learning.
The only time I ever won tickets on the radio to anything
Really?
was to see the Indigo Girls in Boston, probably 2005. And it was the greatest concert.
Did you have to answer a question to get
I had
it,
to
or
be
did
the
you just
third
call
caller and identify the song. And I think it was Kid Fears or something like that
Yeah.
from the first couple notes.
With Michael Stipe?
Yeah.
right?
Right. Hey, look what
Hey,
you
wow.
know.
I learned some
Wow.
things doing the quiz. Speaking of which,
Oh,
it's time for a little quiz.
This is by Mahler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indigo Mahler.
I have this this feeling that just comes over me every time I hear this.
It's pure joy.
Intro
It's
song.
pure joy. I want you to know.
Some people would call it joy, and others would call it something different.
I love it. Once you started playing that, Brad, I saw Tim and Joan start bobbing their heads.
Exactly.
They're
Did you
kind
tell
of. They're kind
what album it was?
of. Yeah, it was from Indigo Girls by Gustav Mahler. Yeah.
Indigo Mahler. Okay, so I'm going to do a little quiz here from Indigo Girls. I'm not going to give you multiple choice because we have Joan here. I'm sure she knows the answers to all of these, right? So I'm just going to ask you the question outright, and then you see if you can come up with it. So what category of music are the Indigo Girls categorized as? What genre of music?
Contemporary folk.
Contemporary folk. There you go. That's good. Okay. Second question. When did the Indigo Girls first meet?
Oh, wasn't this in high
It
school?
was. No, I think it was in.
fifth grade.
Yeah, they were
Fifth
elementary
grade.
school
In
friends.
Atlanta or
Yeah.
Decatur or something like that.
So what's the
In
answer?
Atlanta.
Prior to today.
Yeah.
Prior to today.
See, we're up against the pro here.
Seriously.
I'm sure one of you got it right. Now, what name
Joan.
did the Indigo Girls first perform under? Before they were the Indigo Girls, they were... Well, at one time they went by their last names, right? Sort of like a comedy duo. But
Sailors Ray?
Sailors and Ray is
Okay.
what they went by at one time. But they were also known as the B Band. Well, Joan, you knew that. Why didn't you speak up?
I just saw it, so
Joan is cheating.
I'm cheating. I just saw it.
Okay. You saw it. Are you looking at my sheet? Oh, you're looking it up on your
just,
phone.
I
That's
just saw it right here.
That's no fair.
She phoned a friend, Brad.
Yep, I found it.
Okay. In which U.S. city were the Indigo Girls living when they took their band name in 1985?
I always think they're from Atlanta.
They are from Atlanta. That's right.
You know they have a song, Findlay? Don't they have a song,
They do.
Findlay? And I was like, Findlay, Ohio?
I don't think it is.
No.
What
Findlay.
other Findlay is?
Is it spelled that way?
It is. It's like
You have to
1968.
look that up during this next question. What was the 1987 debut album by the Indigo Girls? What was the title of their debut album?
This one is problematic because there are actually two.
Okay.
So there's one that's just called Indigo Girls, and the other is called Strange Fire. Strange Fire was released after the Indigo Girls got their major label debut, but it was recorded first.
Okay, so what was their debut album?
Indigo Girls.
Okay, well, this says Strange Fire, but that's fine. You can have it.
That's fine. I'll give it to you.
Was Indigo Girls like a pre-release EP? Did it come out?
I think Strange Fire was, and if you listen to it, it sounds like it was recorded in a
on a
smaller
4-track in a
right.
garage? Yeah, okay.
All right. So just a couple more questions here. Now, Indigo Girls have been in popular media, and they were on a popular TV comedy show in 1994 as themselves. I think as themselves. Do you know what show that was?
No.
Saturday Night Live?
No, they have been on Saturday
Were they
Night
on The
Live.
Muppet Show?
I don't know if they were on The Muppet Show or not.
Were they on Sesame Street?
No.
I mean, The
They
Office
were
wasn't
on,
around.
you remember Ellen DeGeneres' old sitcom show?
Oh,
they were on
yeah.
her show. Yeah.
What was it called?
Ellen.
Oh, no, that's her new. That's her show now. What was
Okay.
the original one?
I think it was
Probably
called
the
Ellen too.
DeGeneres show.
Something like
Maybe.
that. Yeah. You have
Yes.
the device, the screen.
But I'm
there.
using
You
it
can look
for good, not for evil.
Well, okay. Couple more questions. The Indigo Girls appeared as themselves in what 1995 movie?
Ellen,
Indigo Girls.
Strange Fire.
Right.
Sorry. None of the above. The answer is Boys on the Side. I never saw
I've
that
never
movie.
heard of that.
Did you? Yeah. Well, it was a movie.
1995?
Yeah. So the Indigo Girls have also been in a novel. Can you tell me what author? A very well-known author. The genre is
Dostoevsky.
horror.
Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Horror.
Yeah.
Really? Nice work,
I
Joan.
was guessing.
Wow.
They were in a Stephen King
You
novel.
went there before you even said horror. You were ready.
Yeah.
Is that on your phone? Hold on.
No,
It's not even on your phone. It's amazing.
It was
Wow.
telepathy.
That was really exciting.
Brad can't contain his excitement.
See,
Well,
this is what
that's-
happens when we don't have multiple choice.
Yeah, Joan wins.
Joan wins.
Every time.
That's about all the time that we have.
I have a feeling you won't be. Joan, you probably won't be asked back if you keep winning.
Yes, that's the
Toledo
plan.
Symphony Land. Yeah, if I'd have thought about it, I would have brought in some bassoon sound effects. All I've got here are trombones, right, because of Elaine Trudel. But, you know, when we had Giordano Bellincampi in here, he was
He's
a
a
trombonist,
huge
too.
Indigo Girls fan.
Is he really?
No.
Okay. I wondered about that. But he was a trombonist, and he said his first conducting job, he got it because his friend was a trombone soloist, and he was afraid that all the other conductors wouldn't know this music, so he looked for a trombonist to conduct it. And I was like, you know, that's like the little trombone mafia going on. Do you think there's like a bassoon mafia out there, or maybe a double reed mafia, Felicia, if you want to get in on this? Is there sort
you're
of like
including
a... Is there a
I think
secret
there's-
society?
I think there's actually a group out there called Bassoon Mafia.
Really?
Bassoon Quartet, Bassoon Mafia. And if there isn't, I will be
There will be
creating
tomorrow.
that. Yes,
You heard it here.
I'll be creating that.
Well, Tim Lake is here with us. Tim, you have anything you want to add to this podcast today?
Have I been
you an-
useless thus far?
Are you?
That's awesome.
Now, would you consider yourself an Indigo Girls fan?
I'm definitely a fan of the genre. I'm not completely attached to them. Like many of us, like Joan was alluding to, when you work in music, you sometimes lose track of the popular soundtrack, the cultural soundtrack that's behind you.
Yeah.
And that is the case. I caught up with a lot of music after my youth that I missed because I was working. So during my youth, like Joan, I was, attached to rock and roll. I was attached to a lot of the music that was, quite frankly, as I was coming up in Gen X, a lot of the music was just big business, and it was just sold to us. And then along, obviously, came take off the spandex, put on a flannel shirt, and there you go, there's grunge. But there's this beautiful moment. And
Wait a minute.
Wait, what?
Take off the
Take off
spandex,
the
put on the flannel shirt, and there's grunge. What's hard to understand about that?
I didn't hear that.
Let me explain that again. No, there's always this cultural backlash, and one of the beautiful things that came out of that era was the resurgence of folk, which happens often and frequently. But this story is told to me and to me personally as it's driven by the female singer-songwriter during that era. And I don't think you can have that conversation. I don't think you can make a list without mentioning Amy and Emily in that same breath.
Yeah.
And so I'm incredibly looking forward to this music. So many of my friends are looking forward to this music. And that's what makes me a fan.
But the Indigo Girls is really for like all generations.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was a week ago, Zach and I spoke with our mayor, and he was talking about how he was working with a young guitarist, and they were jamming on guitar together, and they were trying to figure out a song that they both knew so they could, play together and sing together. And, he would name a song and the kid would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they landed on an Indigo Girls song. I don't know which one it was, but that was what they had in
Of all the
common.
songs,
I think it was
great.
Galileo.
It was Galileo.
I could be wrong. He should really be here with us.
So every time you say Galileo, I'm thinking of Bohemian Rhapsody, with the Queen.
Galileo.
That.
Yeah.
But it's
not that.
It's different.
Not
This
that one.
No. But interestingly enough, so the Indigo Girls have recorded an album with symphony. It's the University of Colorado Symphony Orchestra. The album won't release until the end of June, so after our concert, of course. But you can listen to Galileo. That's the preview track that you can listen to on, choose your favorite music device. And you can also go on YouTube and watch a music video of it. And it's really amazing to see how you take this great sound of guitars and move it to a symphony orchestra, and you layer on top of that those priceless harmonies that they are so well known for. It's just magical.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that because being folk musicians and the folk genre in general, I think lends itself more to the symphonic treatment than perhaps other genres in a real kind of classically oriented way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was popular too. You think about in the 70s folk scene, there were a lot of people who were playing guitars with symphony, with string orchestras behind them. John Denver did it famously. Neil Diamond did it famously. And that was just kind of the sound, and it sounds so good.
Yeah.
But it's, if you look at the set list, it's very similar to what we'll be working with. You have great songs like The Power of Two and Galileo, Chicken Man, one of my favorite songs from Rites of Passage. You see that Kid Fears comes back, Ghost comes back, and then, of course, they finish with Closer to Fine, which is perhaps one of my desert island songs.
Yeah.
So what does it take to, Tim, meld together two singers, guitars, and a whole orchestra?
We've done this sort of thing before.
True.
But it's typically what happens when you sign a contract is you receive what is called a writer. And in that writer is
Ooh, I want to hear about this.
Oh, no, you're not going to
Do
hear
they
all the-
have to?
the
Do you have to
dirty-
sort the M&Ms by color or anything like that?
You would be surprised how many times you come that close. But, Actually, what's really great about their specific writer, as long as we're talking, catering and stuff like that, is they're very ecologically conscious. It's really heartwarming to me to see. No styrofoam, and please no plastic water bottles, because those are the bane of my existence.
So they don't want any of that backstage?
No, and that's fantastic.
Well, that's good.
I'm glad,
yeah,
I'm glad of that.
What's the strangest thing in that writer that you can tell us about?
I can't tell you anything in the writer.
What is the strangest
Just make something up. I mean,
point from another?
Not related to the Indigo Girls. What's the strangest writer thing you've had to?
Yeah.
We've had some fun things in the writer. We've had, one of the things that I thought was just kind of just cute was Pat Benatar's writer, which basically said that, look, she's going to eat off of everyone's plate in every room you put out, so just don't put onions in anything, okay? And it was like, Pat will graze. And it's kind of cute. It's those little things. In the Indigo Girls writer, there's nothing you need to know.
I like the grazing
There's
thing.
nothing you need to know.
I mean, now, if we all had our own individual writers, right, for when you went somewhere, if you had to write, what would be at the top of your list?
Kazoos.
Okay, Zach would want everybody to have a kazoo.
Caffeine and Wi-Fi.
Felicia would want everybody not to have a kazoo. She would want to have them banned from the premises.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what'd you say?
I said caffeine and Wi-Fi.
Joan, how about you?
Pure water.
Pure water. Okay. As opposed to that dirty, muddy water
Yeah.
they serve over there.
He's a great
At the
guitarist.
Wait,
Symphony.
is that a brand? Did you just?
No, just purified water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Purified water.
So, Tim, give us your favorite Indigo Girls song.
It's really closer to fun. Just genuinely for the sheer poetry of it.
Mm-hmm. My sister had that on that album on a cassette, and my dad, I think, took it, which is kind of reverse of how it usually works. And I remember just driving around in the early 90s listening to that with all the windows down, doing a 475 loop, and having that song be over and over again. And there was some lyric that we had to keep going back and listening to. We didn't know if it was closer to some infinitive or closer to the definitive. Or
Oh,
maybe
that one goes by so
it's
fast. It's almost out of time.
splitting the infinitive. I'm not sure.
Joan-
I seek
Joan has
my
all the
source
lyrics
for some
here.
definitives.
Oh, wow. Joan just produced the lyrics.
Is it like I seek my source for some
How
definitive?
did you know to have that in your
I
pocket
seek my
there?
source for some definitive.
Do you have lyrics for all of the...
I told you
I
she
do.
was
They're all right.
she was bopping around in their car to this.
No, it's just, for me, this song, just like Tim was saying, is there's just something about this song to me that's magical. And, for me, most of the time when I listen to a song, for at least the first 500 listens, it's mainly about the music, and then I get to the lyrics. And this song, I think it talks about things that are kind of being revealed actually more these days than even
Some of it does
20
seem
years
predictive,
ago.
doesn't it? A little bit, yeah.
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 And it's almost like they were predicting,
they were prophets.
Yeah, right. And the line for me is there's more than one answer to these questions pointing me in a crooked line. So I just think so much of us are so tunnel vision and we only see one way for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if we only opened our minds a little bit more to see that there are so many other possibilities for everything.
Absolutely.
And I just think, that's kind of what they were alluding to there.
And music is a great vehicle for messages like
Yes.
that.
Oh,
And
it
a,
is.
and a great percentage of the song is, prior to that, is essentially a grocery list of ways I tried to get my questions answered.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just
Right.
fantastic.
And one of the best uses of the throwaway, yeah.
It is a great use of, it's also a fantastic use of Rasputin, by the
That
way, quite frankly.
a poster of Rasputin and a beard down to his knees.
Oh, come on. Talking about predictive, which is just,
Yeah.
it's incredible. Yeah.
Tim's face, if you can only see
The
it.
better thing to do, Brad, would be to play that clip right now.
Yeah, I don't have that clip. So
You can add that clip.
this is the closest I could get.
The closer
what it
you can
sounds
get
like.
to
You play it on
fun.
kazoo?
Yeah.
Hey, listen,
No.
he said Rasputin, and I was right there.
All right. So
Well, it's
wow.
interesting that you listen to the music before the lyrics. Brad. That's interesting, Joan, that you listen to the music before the lyrics because I'm the opposite.
And so was my daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lyrics get to me first, and then the music follows, and that's what I choose to add to my playlist. Songs that really resonate with me,
Yeah.
and for this one in particular, I mean, as you said before, it's searching for the meaning in life, and I found, to me, it seemed like they went back full circle, almost back to the beginning, and it makes me think of like me on my career path or trying to figure out what to do
Yeah.
next in life. And then I find the most joy in like the beginning, like the birth of a baby or something like that.
Sure. Well, a song speaks to you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why people love songs and why they, and the folks that pay attention to the lyrics, I think there's a lot of stuff to be explored in that music. But getting back to the symphony concert, how did this concert come to be? Were they sort of shopping it around to different symphonies? Do you know the story of why they started doing symphonies at all?
I think they're coming to the point in their career where they've conquered so many mountains. They've released so many top 40 hits. They've had so many awards, and this is like the next logical thing. What can we do to expand our sound and try something different? And this is not the sort of thing you do when you're just starting out, because it's easy to get wrong. And this is the sort of thing that if you're as musical as these two women are, and you're as accomplished as these two women are, there's this great balance and delicacy of the perfect amount of rock and roll and a perfect amount of lyricism from an orchestra. And if you get that balance just right, it comes off as being very sincere, and it can capture something that you can't do in a studio with a couple guitars and a set of drums. And if I listen to the Galileo and I imagine what their songs sound like, we talked earlier about how they make such a big sound with such few instruments, and I'm very excited to hear how they make a big sound with many instruments now.
Yeah.
So I was very excited when we were approached to participate in this project, and I've been a huge fan. So obviously I was excited for that. But I think that this allows us to say something yet again very new and very meaningful to our audience.
And the orchestration, it's not, these two singers with guitars in front of the orchestra. The orchestration really unites all musicians on stage. So it's...
But they're still playing guitar, right?
They are.
Yeah,
it's not like some of our Pops concerts necessarily, where we have almost an entire band standing on the other side of sound shields, and then the orchestra almost feels like an afterthought behind the plexiglass walls. That's not what this will sound like.
It's not what it'll look like or feel like either. We're trying to maintain the authenticity of what the Indigo Girls have always brought to their music, both in look and sound. So that's some of the complication.
That sounds like a great experience.
And this is the final of our spotlights for this year. So last year we finished the year with Renee Fleming, just about a year ago. This year we brought Audra McDonald, we brought Kathleen Battle, and we brought the Indigo Girls. So as we programmed that quartet, we really thought about this as this is the greatest set of female voices of a generation. And this is our last crack at it. We've had two opera singers, one of whom sang spirituals, one Broadway phenom, and now two of the most important folk rock singers. And I'm thrilled to see, if you think of it from that quartet perspective, that quartet of programs, this is a really nice way to end.
I'm really proud of what we've done this year with that. Very good.
We're talking about the Indigo Girls. They are performing in concert with the Toledo Symphony. That's this Friday, June 1st at 8 o'clock p.m. It's happening at the Stranahan Theater. They're going to be performing some of their greatest hits along with the orchestra. Sarah Jobin at the podium, and you can find more information at toledosymphony.com or call them up, 419-246-8000. Toledo Symphony Lab is generously underwritten by a gift from the estate of Barbara Garwood and is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org or subscribing on Apple Podcasts. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Felicia Canny, Tim Lake, and Joan Weiler. I'm Brad Cresswell, and this has been Toledo Symphony Lab on FM 91.